So, Jim, I think if you want to get started, we can get started. I just want to give one quick little plug to thank Camden National Bank for sponsoring these this year. We've been great. We've had such great attendance on these. And if you know somebody that missed it, it'll be on YouTube sometime this weekend. You can check that out on our website for the museum. But Jim will talk about that later too. So you can get started, Jim.
Well, am I on?
You're on. You are on.
Well,
I'll fade.
welcome you all. Welcome all of my Zoomers to Sharps Point South, the world famous Sail Power Steam Museum. You know all about that. Wonderful museum on the south end of Rockland, the finest maritime museum in South Rockland. No question about that. My wife and I are here, and we have a great program coming up. Here's my wife in the background here. What would we do without a good wife in the background to keep us on the straight and narrow? Why, we are going to have a great program on the old Victory Chimes tonight. Victory Chimes, of course, the most recognizable of the Windjammer Fleet out of Camden, and it's going to be a pretty out of Rockland, Camden, Maine, whatever it is. We're going to have a great evening talking about it. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to our foundation. This is our foundation for our new building. Our new building down there depicted on the lower part is a boat storage shed. We have so many boats, so many antique boats. We're just running out of room in our museum. You can see under the backhoe there, the museum building just beyond. So we're right on the waterfront there at the Sail Power and Steam Museum. South end of Rockland, Mechanic Street. You got to come down and visit us there. As soon as spring breaks, pardon me, as soon as spring breaks, we're going to be there, hammer and tongs, and we're going to be putting this building up. And it's going to be wonderful. With 22 boats stored in there. The big part of the building here on the lower right is where we have a big steamboat. We have a 40-foot steamboat with a calliope on the top deck, and we have a beautiful stern paddle wheel, wood-burning boiler in her. So that's going to be running there, running on compressed air. We're going to have all these other little buildings, other little garage doors there. We're going to have Friendship sloops, Muskanga sloops in one. We're going to have our Herreshoff 12.5s in another, our antique Beetle Cats in another, and our Optimus Prams in another. So we'll have the building filled full of things, wonderful things that we're doing there at the museum. One of the most wonderful things that we started last season was our SKF program. SKF Sail Kids for Free skiff program. All these little skiffs, these are funny little boats, they're called Optimus Prams. We're taking kids from 6 to 14 years old, and we're teaching them sailing. They come here, like in the left-hand side here, these little tiny kids, see these little kids there standing there, they don't know a rudder from a centerboard, and they're teaching them. And they're teaching them how to rig those sails and put them out on a tether out there, and they go around sailing until they get the idea of what the sails do and the rudders do. Then they take the tether off and they give them a shove away from the dock, and they're out there on their own. They're sailing on their own. By Wednesday, they know what they're doing. By Thursday, they're sailing out, racing their buddies, like this guy down in the lower right here, racing his buddy. And of course, the idea is to go faster, outsail them, run into them, anything you can do, whatever works. Down here at the bottom by Friday, we're having a race, each in their own boat. They're their own captains, and all of this, they're having a race on Friday, and they're just so excited about that. And I get excited about it too. My God, it's just the greatest thing we're doing. This is free. These are kids, we give them a whole week sailing free, and they learn what boats are all about. All sponsored by the Sail Power Steam Museum. And how do they do that, you say? How do you do that and offer free sailing for kids? Well, this is the way we do it. Our skiff program, we promise you, if you will offer us $100 for a week sailing for one kid, we will match you by putting another kid in there. So you get 2 kids for $100. Give us $200, you get 4 kids, 3 another 6 kids. Do the math all the way up and bite off the whole enchilada, as they say. $1,000 will put 20 young ones through a whole week of sailing classes. 20 kids away from their telephones and out on the bay sailing. And just It's an incredible thing that the kids love it. We're getting people calling us all the time now, thinking about next summer. 40 to 45 degrees in Maine, I understand. You got to start thinking about next summer. That's what it's all about. So get in touch with us at the Sail Power Steam Museum. Support a kid. Put them through the sailing program. We'll get more kids away from their phones and more kids out on the bay. Wonderful thing. Well, let's go on now. Start our program on the Victory Chimes. Going to be a long program. We get Kip Files here, and when he starts talking, never know where it's going to end. Is that right, Kip?
Video.
The Victory Chimes, the most recognizable vessel in the Windjammer Fleet, of course, because somebody put a third mast in it. Three-masted vessel. She's 121 years old this year, built in 1900. Beautiful, beautiful vessel. We're going to tell all about her history. She's her original name was the Edwin and Maude, and was renamed the Victory Chimes when she went to Maine. She was built by George Phillips in the shipyard in Bethel, Delaware, 1900. Three-masted gaff-rigged wooden sailing vessel. Like all these old rams were, they don't have an engine in them. They relied wholly on their sails, but if they get in a tight spot, they had a yawl boat, a little small boat that they could use as a tugboat and get out of it. She was 127 feet, 127 and a half feet in length on deck. Not so spar length, but that's the deck length. That's the way you do it. 204 ton, 24 foot of beam. She was named after the Captain Robert Riggs' children, Edwin and Maude. The coastal people often referred to these freighters as Chesapeake ram schooners or Nanticoke rams because they were built on the little coastal villages down there on the tributaries off of the Nanticoke River, which flows into the Chesapeake Bay. The old Maude was built there. 30 others were built there, right in Bethel. And in those years, right down the creek a little way, was another little town called Sharptown. Sharptown built 5 of these vessels, 5 of these rams back in those days. It's quite clear that these vessels were built for a specific hauling freight between the Chesapeake Bay and other cities on the East Coast. They were built narrow so they could pass through the Chesapeake-Delaware Canal. They had a lock in the Chesapeake-Delaware Canal back in those days, and the Victory Chimes and these other rams were built to fit in that lock. And the lock was 25 feet wide. They had to be 24-foot vessels so they could slide into that thing. And of course, they had to have a moderate draft. The Victory Chimes only drew about 7.5 feet with her board up, and she could get into little places, these little harbors, like this one down here in New Bern, North Carolina. And she could load her lumber there. There was an insatiable appetite for lumber back in those days. They would carry all kinds of different cargo going south. They would carry grain, they would carry fertilizer, they would carry all kinds of things, anything that would make a buck. And going north, they would usually load lumber for Philadelphia or the other coastwise towns along the way. Give you a chance to read some of that. Grain was also a great cargo. Weren't necessarily as pretty as a clipper ship, but she was a kind of vessel left over from the age of sail. Interesting vessel. Characteristics were wall sides, bluff bows, flat bottom, not a very little sheer, and no topmasts. And the term ram came along. Well, we're not sure just exactly where it came from, but they say that the ship Chandlery in Chesapeake City, Maryland, watching the first of the rams come through to the lock, entering the lock, the thing was bulldozing their way through and pushing all the other boats out of the way. And the comment was, my God, look at her, she's butting her way through just like some kind of a rambunctious ram. And the name stuck. The cargo varied, but the standby was lumber. As you can see here, they're loading lumber. And old Captain Stevens says we'd load the Maude with dry lumber till she tilt. Now they must have known something about her stability if they loaded her that much. They say they would take dry lumber and put 2/3 of it on deck and 1/3 of it down in the hold. Of course, it was a little harder to get the wood down in the hold, these great long pieces of timber, this wonderful white oak that they have down south, and the longleaf yellow pine. And they wanted all that stuff in Philadelphia so desperately. They would load these vessels up till they were top heavy. So if it was green lumber, they put half of it down below and half of it on deck. But they would always load it up on deck right and as high as they could go till they could just barely see over the top. And then when she'd tilt a little bit, well, that was time to put another 4,000 square feet on. Oh my goodness, what they would do to those vessels. And of course, on the return trip with a little list on the vessel, they used the oil boat quite a lot of the occasion. I don't know if this, can you see the printing on the right side there? I don't know. We don't seem to get that. Well, when they load grain, of course, they would just put that in the hold, seal the hatches up, and let her go. And I understand that they used to take a skiff just for fun, float it around on the main deck there. But the old man's comments, he didn't mind because she was really a nice boat. Victory Chimes was an able boat, an easy boat to handle, and a vessel that was kindly to its owner. Can you read that on the right side? I have pictures.
Yes,
Yeah, it looks
yes,
like
Jim.
we can do it there, Jim. It looks good.
I have pictures in the way. I can't see.
No, it's on there. You're all set.
Okay. Well, for 46 years, time to do something else with that vessel. She was still able at that time. She was built so beautifully of southern woods that she was lasting and lasting a long, long time. Not suffering at all for that. Finally, in 1945, there were only 2 rams left. And old Captain Stevens there, he decided he would retire. And in 1946, he retired and let the Maude go from work to play. In 1944, Captain Herman Nust acquired the 11J Marvel, investing, they reported $18,000 for her purchase and conversion to passenger service. $18,000 was a fortune back in those days, but he was a smart old curmudgeon. He knew what he was doing. And then in 1946, he bought the Edwin and Maude for his Chesapeake vacation cruises. The Edwin and Maude cruised from 5 days to 2 weeks on a trip, sometimes a 2-week trip across the bay there. The 2 schooners were operating at 90% capacity during June to October in the season. Quite successful in those days. There she is, all painted up beautifully, and a painting of her when she had started her tenure there as a windjammer. There's their brochure. The 11J Marvel, of course, on the left there. She doesn't carry much shear in her, and they always said that she wasn't a very sightly vessel. And the Edwin and Maude on the other side. The brochures, they read with all the beautiful sayings and the same treatment we give our brochures nowadays. And this will all be on YouTube, so we won't let you read it all now, but on YouTube, you'll be able to stop it and read the brochure should you choose to do so. You can see here, as a windjammer, dividing her up and building cabins in her, they put port lights in for the first time down in the cabins. And she continued on cruising the bay and being very successful. But in the, there's a happy group of passengers, 1948. Herman Nuss, our captain. Got to thank Kip Files for a bunch of these pictures. He really came forth and found these old, many of these old pictures. Old Captain Nuss, Knust, you could say. Captain Nuss, he was a smart cookie, as I say. In 1954, he sold his schooners. He sold the 11J Marvel to a Pennsylvania entrepreneur, and he sold the Edwin and Maude to a Maine syndicate. This was the last trip in 1954. In 1955, in August of 1955, 11J Marvel, the one to the left here in the photograph, as you can see what they say about her, a vessel so ugly would hurt your eye to look at her, was sunk in Hurricane Connie on the Chesapeake Bay with a loss of 14 lives. The Coast Guard blamed the Marvel's poor condition and bad judgment on the part of her captain. It'd be another 20 years after this before passenger service would return to the Chesapeake Bay. Too bad, but old Captain Nuss got out of it just in time, and the Edwin and Maude then headed north. She was renamed the Victory Chimes after the purchase by the syndicate in 1954, charter in Maine. Now, Kip, you're going to have to help me out here.
Sure thing.
You're going to have to help me out here. Do you happen to know, Guile didn't have her at this time. There was another man called Elliot.
Yeah. No, it was before Frank Elliott, actually. Boyd brought her north.
Boyd did.
Yes. Yeah. And that's quite the story because he got blown offshore and tore out some sails. I guess the sails weren't that good condition. And then the tug finally, the Coast Guard came, but they would do that back then. They'd go find you and bring you back. And they wanted to bring him back into, I don't know, Virginia or something. And then, of course, Boyd being, you know him as well as anybody, Boyd being Boyd, talked him into towing into Portland, Maine or somewhere. And delivered her. Then the group owned her for a couple of years, and then this syndicate went belly up, and that's when the Rockland family got her. And then she sank at the dock a couple of years after, like 3 years that owned it, and then Captain Guile stepped in and bought her off the bottom. That's my understanding.
Was she still called the Edwin and Maude then?
No, she was named Victory Chimes. And if I can't remember the name of the fellow who was. Because I could find, if I could find a document, then I would, I could remember it. But he was a fellow from Surrey, Maine, that was a big financial part of this whole bringing her north. And somehow he had connections with the original Victory Chimes, which actually a younger vessel. She was built in Prince Edward Island and launched on Armistice Day, the first to celebrate the end of World War I, and on Prince Edward Island. And so her name was Victory Chimes, because when Victory Chimes shall ring throughout the land, that vessel was launched. So it meant peace or end of war. And she sailed down east for a long time. I think I sent you a picture of her in Eggemogan Reach. She had topmast and so forth. A little bit different type of vessel, full keel. But this fellow from Surrey, I can't remember his name. It's almost a Spanish name, but he had a piece of that.
That's not Elliot.
No, it was before Elliot. And he had a piece of the original Victory Chimes, I don't know, 230 seconds or a couple of 60, who knows? But because she was common in Maine and how did he put it in the letter I wrote? Edwin and Maude sound like two old mules. So he named her Victory Chimes after that three-master and give her a new life. And she's been that ever since, except for a little bit of Domino's pizza time. But
all right.
That's the original Victory Chimes. That's a Canadian-built schooner. And that's in Eggemogan Reach, right before before the bridge.
Is that right?
Right about the bridge.
Because I don't think the Victory Chimes that we know ever had any ironwork for topmasts. Did it?
No, she never did. Her four lowers, and if you read some of the stuff that the old timers talked about sailing them, they would say just because they were so narrow, you know, they had a tremendous and flat bottom there, Jim. They had a tremendous amount of initial stability, but you know, those lowers were just as all you needed. They didn't want topmasts on them. They would make them too unstable. It was just too much for them.
Oh yeah, good, yeah.
But this being a full keel vessel, she had them, and she's pretty tired there. I think this was not. I can't remember the date of this. Maybe it was 29 or 30 or something.
Yeah.
She was she hauled cargo here to Maine, and then she was in the last of her business within the sardine trade. She'd load herself up with sardines, and I think she sank at the dock in somewhere New Brunswick or Nova Scotia or something. But still, look at the little yawl boat on the stern. Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was an interesting vessel, but she was, for those, you know, back in the 20s and so forth, it was not uncommon to see sailing vessels still flying, especially between, you know, down east here. This was not an uncommon thing. So she was pretty common sight. Back and forth, and I guess that's why he named her. He owned a piece of her, like that name, you know, meaning peace and end of war and all that other stuff. So
yeah,
that's the year the boy had her right there. That's you can see how she's painted up nice, and I think that's the year that Cat and Guile bought her. There's some interesting stories about that too. That whole, you know, I remember when I worked for him. This is a great story. When I worked for him that season as mate. And I remember being back in the aft cabin there, all spit and polished, hair just right, combed right up, shaved right off. And I said to him, I said, Captain, you were very brave to buy a vessel that just sunk. I don't, you know, what do I know? And he said, oh, I wasn't worried about her. I knew about the vessel. Some damn fool had just left the sea cock open, sitting there with his sea cock going. Oh, really? take what you want from that. Yeah.
Well, this is the time that when was Frank Elliott in there then?
Well, Frank bought it from the first group that brought her to Maine.
Oh,
And Frank bought her, and he was a pretty interesting guy. That family in Rockland, they have a lot of history and I think Sam's gotten to him better than I did. I really couldn't crack that nut to get some of the pictures from them and some of the stuff, but they had it for a bunch of different years. And I've talked to a bunch. The family's pretty big. I've talked to a bunch of them. A couple of them sailed with me. You know, they had some great memories as kids, you know, their dad owning it and so forth. It was,
good.
Had electric lights, Jim. That was pretty good back then.
Yeah, running water.
Yeah.
Running water and a radio telephone.
I'm telling you. That was
my God.
And this picture to the right, that's part when she was in the Chesapeake Bay.
Oh, was it?
You know that, you know that fellow you're talking about, William, his middle name was Seaford Stevens. And I took the Chimes to the Chesapeake Bay for 100th birthday. If you want me to shut up and you keep going, go ahead.
No,
I took the Chimes. Paul and I took her to the Chesapeake Bay for 100th birthday, and we're sitting there at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. And this family comes along with this old fellow, and they said, geez, you mind if he comes aboard? And I said, oh, absolutely not. Well, he used to work on her. Really? Oh, yeah, bring him aboard. He won't remember much. You know, he's pretty aged, in his 90s. He was William Seaford Stevens. And he comes aboard, and he just lit up. His face completely lit up. This is brought back memories. And he said he and his father and his mother worked on it sometimes, and his brother, I think it was his brother. There was just the three of them working on it. He said, oh, we were always hungry. That was the worst thing. And he said, then we got into, after we sold it, we got into the passenger trade, and that was pretty good. He said that with a smile. That was pretty good. We ate pretty well. And so, I'm walking around. This guy is the connection. You know, this is a guy that, you know, he actually did this cargo thing and then got to play with it afterwards. And so I said to him, well, as he's walking around the Chimes, what's the biggest difference you notice between when you had her and when she is right now? Year 1999. He looked over at me and says, she's a hell of a lot cleaner.
I believe that.
Oh, yeah. Times change. He sailed as Noose's first captain.
He what?
When Noose bought it, he sailed for Noose. Well, for the guy that bought it, put her in the Chesapeake Bay trade.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was a railroad guy. He didn't have any experience with sailing. Yeah. So Seaford was his first captain.
Oh, I
A
see.
season or two or something. I don't know.
I see.
Interesting cat. A really interesting guy. Smile, all that Chesapeake Bay waterman stuff. Oh, he was great. Anyway, I'll let you go on, Jim. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. Keep it up because this is all news to me now.
Yeah.
Boyd Guile and I never sat down for very long to talk things over.
Well, that's another whole production here. We could go on for hours on that.
That's a good story to forget.
That's for another day.
I think these pictures, Jim, were taken the year she was taken out of service, and I think this was with Noost. They came down, the fellow from the Annapolis, and I think these pictures come from him, or very shortly when they were surveying her to get her to, to buy her to put her in the passenger trade. She's up there on Tillman's Island, the fish plant.
Mm-hmm.
You can see there's nothing up there. There she is in Rockland, I think.
That's the first picture of Rockland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who's behind her, Jim. You might know.
No,
It looks like Orville.
I have no idea.
No, this fellow lived in Sears. He gave me this picture, but I was looking at the mast in behind the
Right.
Victory Chimes, and I was just, had a little topmast on it, and I go, why? Look at that. I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
No.
Kind of fuzzy picture.
Yeah.
So actually, it wasn't 1954 then when Guile took over, was it?
No, he stretched that story a little. Yeah. He didn't take it over until then. He lost it once too. Why he owned it?
Oh yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah. We got it back. He was very successful. Well, he was a heck of a guy. He sailed on 5 masters, so I mean, he really kind of knew what he was talking about at times. He was a member of the old school. But that's a wonderful picture there.
How did he lose her?
Bank.
I think the bank repossessed it and they took it to Bucks Harbor and tied it up.
Oh.
And I think who sailed it down there was Maynard Bray. He was a kid or something. Maynard told me about this. So yeah, he got her back, and it was Eben Wickham's father, who was the bank in Ellsworth, whatever it was, that helped them get back and get going again.
Is that right?
Yeah.
A bank thing, huh?
Yeah, you're shocked.
Well, there he is. There he is right there.
Yeah, he sailed on the Hoyt. I mean, he knew what he was talking about. Interesting man to work for. I remember Steve Cobb and I, because Steve Cobb sailed on her for a while, and the two of us would talk about, surviving the Boyd years. And it's kind of a badge of honor for me to have worked with him and stuff. He ran his vessel different than other people, but he kind of knew what he was talking about. I mean, with stuff, and he was a heck of a ship handler. I wish I had time to pay more attention because I could have learned a lot more than I did, but he kept us pretty busy.
Well, that's interesting. He was quite a guy.
Oh, yeah. He had donkey engines too, didn't he? I mean, you guys would wrestle over donkey engines, if I remember.
Well, we had a little to do over donkey engines one time. Yeah.
It's okay.
And I happened to get a donkey engine out of Stonington. I went to see Fred Billings. This donkey engine was in one of the buildings back there, and it was a duplicate of what I had on the Adventure. Well, the one I had on the Adventure had the piston was in 4 pieces. So I wanted that engine for parts. It was the exact same engine. So I went over to the Billings boys there, and I said, "Hey, what are you going to do with that whole building? They're going to tear it down, burn it up." I said, "Well, what about the stuff in it?" "Well, anything in there you can have." I said, "I want that engine. I'll pay it. I'll pay you $50 for that engine." And they said, "Oh, well, I better find out from the owner whether that'd be all right if you took it." I said, "Well, don't tell him I want it because there'll be no deal then." So I went back 3 weeks later and I said, "Well, did you talk it over with Captain Guile?" He said, "Oh yeah, it's all right. You take the engine. $50. It's all done." So I took the engine. Well, I had 7 lawyers call me up that winter trying to get that engine back again. 7 lawyers. Well, anyway, I took it and I took it apart and I told all the lawyers that if they could identify this engine, give me a part number and so on and so forth, why I'll see if it matches up. Well, it didn't quite match up for some reason or other.
Well,
And next year I had my donkey engine running when we went sailing by the Victory Chimes.
That's all right. Well, you know, I did enjoy. It was hard work. What Jimmy could tell you, Jimmy Payne, I see he's on. He could tell you more about. He spent a lot more time with them than I did. I was just there one season, but
Yeah.
I got to know him when Domino's hired me, I went to see him a little bit and stuff. I got to talk. To him.
I was only there 13.
Only 13?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a good picture. Good picture coming to him. But I hired a lot of crew from the Victory Chimes. A lot of crew came over to me from the Victory Chimes. Every time they came to me and said, I worked on the Victory Chimes, I say, you're hired, because they were well trained.
Yes.
And
Kip, what year were you on the Chimes with Captain Guile?
You know, I think it was 77.
Okay.
Could have been 78, but I think it was 77.
I was gonna say my first trip with him was, I think, 78, I think.
Yeah.
the years go coursing by, don't they? Look at that beautiful.
Look at those decks. Jimmy, you varnished those decks, didn't you?
Yeah, I stripped him the year after I got out of school. I moved aboard January 2nd and spent the rest of the winter stripping that deck, sanding and varnishing.
Nice.
And Janet, she was a charming lady.
Great.
Mother G, we called her.
Yeah.
I thought she was great.
Yeah.
But
She came sailing with us. She came sailing with me a couple of different trips. She and June Knowles.
Yeah, June. Yeah.
She gave me some interesting history of Bucks Harbor. We came into Bucks Harbor and took her ashore. She walked around. There's some interesting history.
That wheel's almost bigger than you are, Jim.
It was that year. That was 59. The next year I was a little bit taller than it was, but we left Rockland to head for Boothbay for our first trip, and we're going out of Rockland. And he said, I forget the course, but it was like steer southeast by east, a quarter east. And I said, what? And he said, you can't box a compass? I said, no, sir. He said, you better learn how to box a compass by tomorrow morning or I'm sending you home. And at least once a week for those first 2 summers, he was going to send me home for something, one reason or another. But I learned.
Yeah.
And then I learned that nobody else in the crew could either, but I was the only one that steered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to do that on the adventure too. We didn't have any degrees.
Right.
And I wouldn't let them take the wheel unless they boxed the compass first.
Right. It's a lost art. There's some
of the crew.
Yeah.
Jim, maybe you can tell me about some of the crew there. Is that six toe? Is that the?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And you see that'd be Kathy Swanson next to Captain Guile, and me next to her, the young fellow between us, I'm not sure. Then the woman in front would be Nancy Beckett, later on to be my wife, and then Fritz Williams.
Is that right? Yeah.
Fritz Williams in back, Tom Norsworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not sure the second to last one, and Kip probably knows the one on the end there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's Skip.
Yeah, Skip Wood.
Oh.
And, that was good crew. Yeah. And he had Filipino cooks after 1960. The first 2 years he had Clayton Hodgson, who cooked on the boat and made trips north with McMillan.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's right.
And they specialized in popovers.
Did six toe really have 6 toes on one foot?
All 3 feet.
Well, I won't go into that.
Yeah.
Tom Norton sent these pictures in. I'm not sure about this, but 1969, I think he told me it was. And,
No, because the deck was painted.
oh, is that right?
69 was the first year with a varnish deck.
Huh.
That looks like paint to me.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said
Safe coat.
that this was crew outfitting crew that he used to get from the academy to come down.
That's right.
Paid him $2 a day, or was it $2 an hour?
Hour, I think. Had some good hard workers. Had Marshall Merriam, Rockland, Peter Lee Nielsen, who's, Oyston Lee Nielsen, Lee's boat shop. That was his father.
Oh yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
Tom's a great worker. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Tom Norton. He used to do the varnishing on the wheel box, he said.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be on. You on there, Tom?
I am, Jim. I came in late, but I've just caught up with everybody.
Hey, Tom.
Great to hear voices and familiar faces.
Well, there are a couple of your pictures anyway. And his nibs
Yeah,
there.
good, Jim.
Showing
I'm
everybody.
good. I'm glad they got in.
Jim, I want to tell one little quick story about the early to my second year, say 1960.
Yep.
We're in Bucks Harbor, and Buds was there, Havilah Hawkins, on the Wentworth, I guess. And he came over in the all boat with either Hattie or Ronnie, I'm not sure which. And he didn't come aboard, he just lay alongside, and I was holding his painter, and he said, "Boyd, we got to talk. We got a problem here." And Captain said, "Well, what is it, Buzz? What's the problem?" He said, "Well, you're going to ruin the business. You're raising the rates over $99, and the business will never support it." That was 1960. $99 for 6 days.
Wow.
And all the food you could eat.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I charged the first year I had the Stephen Tabor.
Yeah, it's amazing.
$99. The good old days.
There's
Well,
Bill
another-
Elliott right there.
Another gang, yeah.
Yeah.
I told Bill Elliott we were going to be. I don't know if Bill's on. Bill, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Bill.
There he is.
Hey, Jim.
All the way
And
from,
Jim.
all the
Yes,
way
it
from
is.
California. Yeah. Well, what do you got to say about this, Bill?
It was the varnish decks bring back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
We'd come in on a Saturday, we'd come in on Saturday and then get the passengers ashore, and then we'd all get down and holystone the decks, and then get a coat of varnish on them before we got off the ship for the evening. So it was a lot of work, and I was always amazed that Jim was able to strip those things on his own. I think you were the only one doing it, right, Jim?
Yes. Yep. Pretty much.
All alone. I mean, that
Yep.
story was told over and over.
Yep.
And every time we felt like
At
we were.
night, I'd paint out the interior.
What's that?
At night, I painted out the interior.
A great training.
Jim Payne was a hardworking man, and every time we felt sorry for ourselves on Saturday afternoon, somebody reminded us what Jim did, all on his own, and we didn't feel so worn out. That was a lot of work.
Great.
It was a great ship, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a good summer.
There's that beautiful varnish wheelbox.
Yeah.
Finest wheelbox on the coast.
You see that cannon there?
Yeah.
That was the 1959 or 60 we had for mate and second mate. We had Gordon Richardson and John Higginson, and they were just back from having sailed around the world with Irving Johnson on the Yankee. And they were told they could bring anything back with them that they could sleep with. And one of them slept with that all the way back from Borneo, where they found it diving. That's the same bunch that found the Bounty's anchor that was on the cover of National Geographic.
Wow.
That was that same crew.
Wow.
Great.
That was Bill Bunning in that crew picture there too. He knows a thing or two about some of these vessels.
Yeah. That was Bill Bunning where?
Yeah, and that right there, sitting in the front right with his ankles crossed next to me. I'm in the blue shirt. He's in the darker.
Oh
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
He was just off the Albatross then.
Well, I love this picture. This is really great.
That says it all.
I would never have recognized Doug though. It just doesn't look like Doug at all to me. But his wife gave it away. And is that Molly Mulholland?
That I don't know.
Oh, and the gal behind her, I recognize her. I thought that might be Abby Alden, but maybe not.
Yeah, could be.
But
He
Kevin
liked to hold forth and he liked a captive audience.
Yeah, he has a cigar there, and he's telling them all sea stories.
Always. That's right.
Yeah, pretty good.
Jim, you might like to point out who Doug and Linda are.
Oh. I
You didn't
thought
say
I
their
did.
last name for those who don't know them.
The
Yeah.
captains.
Yeah, it's both captains. Lee. Lee is the last name. And they're schoonerless right now. They've just arranged to have their schooner taken over by a couple of other people. So new kids on the block in the Heritage.
Also, Jim, somebody has pointed out in the chat room that is Pegeen Mulhern at North End.
Yep. Pegeen?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Pegeen. Well, now here, Kip, you'll have to help me with this too.
Right.
84, the vessel went to the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I took that picture one morning in Pulpit Harbor, but yeah, she went to the Great Lakes in Minnesota. I have the logbook of the trips, and it was quite colorful. They went to Duluth by way of Tampa,
Oh,
and then
really?
Rockland. Yeah, kind of a long way around, but and then Steve Cobb was captain of her for a while. And they had a little tugboat. They bought a little tugboat and so forth. It was a tough go for a couple of fellas that really didn't have any idea what they were getting into. And on that trip, they had that beautiful yawl boat. He lost that yawl boat off of Miami.
Really?
South. Yeah, it's just a shame. But
Great boat.
I'm not 100% sure that $1 million is correct, but it doesn't make any difference. And then she went to Duluth, and then they tried to get her certified because they were under the assumption that because their certification lakes, bays, and sounds, that the Great Lakes were lakes and they could do this, but they couldn't because the Great Lakes have their own jurisdiction. And so they did some day sails with the tugboat attached to her with a hawser, and then they did some stuff off, and they could never make a go of it. And they went belly up. And she was towed back by Lane Briggs to the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. And I happened to be working for the museum at the time when she arrived. And boy, I looked at her and I said, she's gone. America's last three masters gone. She was in really sorry shape. I mean, there was stalactites, stalagmites, all this stuff coming from the deck. And you could just go, you know how it is when you go aboard a vessel, you could smell the death.
Yeah.
And I said, oh boy, there's nothing left of this. And so the museum was thinking about keeping her. But anyway, the bank put her up for auction. And Tom Monahan, who had started Domino's Pizza, $500. He started Domino's Pizza, sold it for $1 billion, I believe, one with a B. He was looking for a vessel to go back to the Great Lakes to do some stuff off of his island that he had bought, Drummond Island, in Lake Michigan. So anyway, he purchased her, towed her to Samples, had her towed to Samples. Yeah. And restoration began, and that's how I got back involved with it. I met the folks that had purchased her, and then she, her name was changed to Domino Effect, which was, name's a name, but it wasn't the greatest name for a traditional schooner. But I think he put 1.7 million into her in restoring it, and that's a small price to pay for a name. And she sailed around a little bit, and then. Their captain hadn't really, and even my partner Paul, who was in charge of the Marine Division of Domino's, I mean, they didn't know anything about wooden boats. They really didn't. I mean, not large wooden sailing vessels. This is not what they were. Tom had a couple of wooden. He had the steam vessel and a couple of wooden yachts that were just outstanding. But anyway, so I got back involved with him. I called him one night and said, I wrote him a letter and told him if they needed any help that whatever it might be, if I don't have the answer, I might know who does. And so he called me back and said, listen, you want a job? And I was working for Vision Quest at the time. But anyway, and I left Vision Quest and went with Domino's Pizza for almost a year. And then Domino's put it up for sale. Everything was going. Everything. All his vessels were going. The Detroit Tigers were going. Everything. All these things Tom owned. And so I talked. Probably never forgave me for this, Paul, into purchasing the Domino Effect and bringing it back to Maine with the thought that we wouldn't own it very long because this is such a historic artifact. You know, she's the only, I think there were 3,000, or close to 3,000 three-masters built in the East Coast of North America. It's just the only survivor. She's the only schooner in existence from the age of sail from the Chesapeake Bay. I mean, her history just goes on and on and on. She's just a unique vessel. So I said, this will be easy. You know, we'll purchase this from Tom, and then I'll run it for a couple of years just because I couldn't afford to own it just outright. And then we'll find somebody that really, really wants it. Well, 28 years later, Sam came down the dock.
Well, wasn't it going to go?
We brought her back. Paul and I brought her back to Maine, renamed her Victory Chimes, and the only way we could afford to do it, we put her right back into the windjammer business. And she had a complete rebuild. Well, not a complete rebuild, but a lot of her had been rebuilt. And so we felt confident that we could, you know, keep her going. And so we did. We did it for 28 years.
Weren't they gonna take it to China or Japan or something like that?
Oh well, that was why Paul and I bought her. Yeah, that's right. I was the captain for Domino Effect, and so I was showing it to people, you know, prospective people buying it. There was a folks from Japan that put a bunch of cash on the table, wanted to buy her, and they would have taken her to Japan to make her a restaurant in a lake. They wanted me to go along. They were going to pay me all sorts of money. Wanted me to go along, and you know, I don't know, sit around and talk. I don't know what they want me to know. I kept thinking this is just not right. And my dad was pretty interested in what I was doing. He was a naval aviator during World War II, and had spent a little time in the South Pacific flying Dauntless, the SBD, the dive bombers. And his perspective or understanding of the Japanese might not be what we consider politically correct today. He yelled at me, "You got to go see Monahan. You can't let Monahan purchase that, you know, give that to the Japanese," you know. And so I talked to Paul about it, and Paul talked to Tom about it, you know, and the deal sort of fell through, and I can't remember why. And Monahan said, "You guys can have it if you want it." And he helped us. He really did help us a lot. There was a lot of, you know, he got a lot of bad rap for calling it Domino Effect, but the rest of it was, what else he did was pretty good. And he helped Paul and I purchase the vessel and help us get it to Maine, and then bang, off we went. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
These dates about correct up here?
Yep. That's correct. Yeah. Paul was living in Florida. You know, he'd come up as much as he could, but that wasn't the intent when we purchased it. Well, the intent was to turn it over to someone here in the U.S. to keep it U.S. flag. Because once you lose that flag, she'd never come back. I mean, she could never do. She's grandfathered so much into everything. So that there's no way they were going to let her come back. And Portland has been awful good. You know, that district's been awful good to keeping a vessel like this with 208 gross ton and not a bulkhead in her under T. So it was, you know, certified. So you couldn't rebuild her. There's nothing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, Paul probably got my picture up on a dartboard somewhere. It was great though. I mean, I was 28 years of great stuff. I met some great people, got to sail with some great folks, you know, and of all the things I've done, you know, of all the things I've done in the maritime industry, I think that windjammer business was the hardest I did, but it was the most fun. I mean, we just had so much fun with the guests. It was showing them our part of the world. It was great. That's a good picture.
It's fabulous. There's some kind of euphoria that takes over when you have a vessel like that.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. You know, she's not the fastest. She's not. The one thing about the Chimes is she's the biggest. That was it. You know, she's easily identifiable.
Easily identifiable, yeah. And then you got her through National Historic Landmark.
Yes, we did that. Yeah, we got her through that. That took us a couple of years to pull through that. Yeah. Then of course we got her on the State of Maine quarter. That was a unique thing.
Yeah.
That's a long and involved story, but the governor at the time, Angus King, had sailed with us a couple of times. So there was a little bit of, I don't know, he says it wasn't, but there was a little bit of help there somewhere. But it went to the vote of the people of the state of Maine, and they're the ones that voted for it. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty good. But the only problem, Jim, and you would understand this, is when they were going to print it, they wouldn't put our 800 number or our webpage on the coin.
Oh, well, some days you can't make a nickel with a dime.
Yeah.
But there's a picture that shows how big she is. My God, took quite a few buckets of paint to go around that one, didn't it?
Oh, man. Yeah, look how flat she is. Yeah, that's my old mate, Michael Stevens. Great guy. I got him off the Bark Alyssa. He was banging around there. Brought him back down to Maine, and he worked with him for a bunch of years. He and Robert Wheeler. There's a couple of folks from the Alyssa that came and really spent a lot of time with me. Good folks.
Well,
You can see why they called her a ram. Look at that. Look at that bow.
Yeah. Bud Hawkins and I always used to argue about how much hog there was to her keel. How much hog did she have to her keel?
I don't measure it. Probably by the time we ended up, here's the thing. It really, when Domino's Pizza was refurbishing her, they built the hog right back in. They had the opportunity to take it out or some of it out, jack up the stern,
Yeah.
They never did it. They actually replaced some of the Kelson with the hog in it.
Is that right?
It was 18 inches when they
3.5, 4 feet, maybe more.
when they put in that
It's hard to
false
tell. That
keel, it
false
was
keel-
18 inches.
Jimmy, were you there when Boyd put that
Yes.
straight keel on?
Yeah, we measured it. Harry Goodridge actually was one of the divers on that. And, we stretched a wire the length of it, and it was 18 inches at
There you go.
18
the biggest
inches.
part. Yeah.
It's probably 3 feet by the time, probably now,
Yeah.
which isn't bad for a vessel that,
Oh,
built
yeah.
right. She's regularly built, but
Yeah.
had the opportunity to jack up that stern.
Yeah.
It never happened. That's one,
Yeah. Too bad.
it is too bad.
And you got the board out one time.
Yeah, that's with Sam right there. That's the new captain. I don't know if Sam's right.
Oh,
Yeah, there he is. Showed them how to haul that out. It's unique, their vessels were always built to take the board out in the water.
Sure.
You couldn't get them up. You couldn't get them up high enough on a railway to take it out.
No, sure.
We broke the board sailing into Booth Bay one day and left 2 days later with a new board from Samples.
Did you?
Yeah.
2 days? Nice job. Now, Jim, did it split in half or did you actually hit a whale?
Well, the story, I mean, he said it was a whale, but there wasn't much holding it together, kid.
Yeah. I suspect.
It was just inside Ram Island.
Yeah.
And there she's up for sale.
Yeah. John Foss took that picture, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. That's the little thoroughfare.
And
That's Castine there.
Castine,
One of the most amazing sunrises I ever saw on it.
trading off now.
There we go.
And Sam, are you there?
Yeah, I just had to figure out how to unmute it.
Hey, Sam.
There you go.
Hi.
How you
Well,
doing?
Yeah.
Your
So-
turn. Your turn.
Pretty
Yeah.
exciting, huh?
Yeah. Well, it is. It was a lot more exciting until 2020 came along.
Yeah. Well, it'll be exciting again one of these days.
I think so. Yeah. It'll. Wow, I was skinny back then.
Your hair wasn't gray either.
Don't tell
Yeah.
me.
Well, it was. No, you can't see it under the hat. Picnic Castle successfully gave me plenty of gray hair.
Plenty of experience there to turn your hair gray.
Yeah. Well, I've been very fortunate that I was able to have a pretty interesting career, which is certainly not changing now. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Love it the way you tried to put her ashore on the breakwater.
Hey, that's not me. That's Kip right there.
Oh, is that Kip? You might know.
Yeah.
It did. Someone
that's
forgot,
his
the bow watch
flag.
forgot to tell me there was a breakwater there.
We were up in the lighthouse there. I was going to step aboard.
I think Kip just wanted to show me how close he could get to it.
Might be.
Yeah. A love to see the Victory Chimes in the nest of all the windjammers there. You know, Captain Guile never had her around where anybody could see her. They always shunned all the other boats.
Yeah, I always thought it was important to be part of the group.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's great.
It was always good. It's such a unique group of people.
Very unique vessels, and look at that big wide stern on her. She's the principal vessel. Yeah, no doubt about it. So this is one of yours, Sam.
Yeah, I think that's looks like that's in the little thoroughfare. That would have been, yeah, sort of middle of the 2019 season, probably. It's one of certainly one of my favorite anchorages along the coast there. We got a couple of good pictures of her sailing right along.
Yeah, yeah.
Kip didn't tell me that the thing could actually go 10 knots, so it was a little bit exciting when I found that out.
That's great.
Yeah, it's the most uncomfortable 10 knots you'll ever do on a large vessel.
There's absolutely no water left in the bay.
Yeah, it's
Push it all the way up to Castine.
Well, and that's a steel bowsprit still in there.
Yeah, still the steel one. It's in great shape. What, Kip, did you say that was the largest thing that Bath Ironworks had ever galvanized when they made that?
Yeah, Jimmy would know more than I do, but I think that and the bench, the water tank, the on-deck tank, those, I think both were built.
Both of those tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The other one, the one at the break is gone.
Right.
And we would replace sort of that. But I think that was the largest steel thing that they had ever galvanized at the time, had galvanized.
We sailed the Harpswell with that steel bowsprit in an easterly. We got there all the way to Harpswell on a Monday with her. That was no mean feat. Quite a breeze. And we got back in to Rockland Saturday, and a crew member was out furling the jibs. Next thing I know, he's climbing up the ladder, all wet. And he was sitting on that bowsprit shroud, and the eye bolt had let go. And that bowsprit went all the way, and it was that side. We were on port tack. It was easterly, and that bowsprit took all the load that whole time. That shroud wasn't doing anything.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty rugged. It is pretty rugged.
Gowdy and Stevens built that.
Somebody's asking in the chat room, how much does she draw with the centerboard down?
Well, we usually sail her around 12 feet. I mean, you could do more theoretically, but really try not to let the centerboard leave the case entirely.
And tell me what the masthead's made out of. What are the three trucks? Are they fiberglass on top of the masts, or what are they?
Two of them are. The main and the foremast are fiberglass, but that mizzen mast has an actual West Coast masthead on it.
Oh, does it?
Doug Lee carved that out for him. Made that spar for him.
That's all right. Huh. Yep.
Yeah, when that mizzen was when it was going bad, we were off between Mohegan and Whitehead in a seaway and doing the slat bang roll thing, and I was just tending the main sheet to try to ease some of the slat, and I had a hand on the mizzen, and I thought I saw it, and I saw it again, and I went back and told the captain, and I said, I think that mast is twisting. And he said, that's not possible. And we went up, sure enough, it was twisting.
Ouch.
Jeez.
It was all gone in the lazarette there. And that's when he put that steel sistering on it.
Right.
And is that that was the mast that came down when the rigging gang was on there? Is that right?
That was the mainmast.
Yeah, that was the main.
Oh, that was.
He had a collar on her, a stainless steel collar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. God, that was a shame.
Yeah,
Oh,
unfortunate. Yeah.
Beautiful with the sunlight coming through the sails, and the fog bank
chasing her.
We go to fog bank chasing us down, trying to get into Gilkey's before it socked in there. Yeah, that was I remember that day pretty. It's pretty amazing. Big fog bank rolling in, entirely obscured the Camden Hills.
Yeah.
Made for some impressive drone shots.
Yeah.
The concert on the foredeck.
Yeah, that was when I remember that night we were, that's one of those, you know how those nights in Maine can go and you get, you know, the right at that evening twilight and the harbor's calm. That's in Pulpit right there. And, you know, just flat calm. There's no noise and just hearing Bach cello concertos waft across the deck by the lamplight. It's really pretty special.
Yeah, sure is. Sure is.
They're pretty talented, Sam. He's got some great musicians that work on him. It's great. You know, I couldn't sing a song.
I've heard you sing, Kip. You can't hide that.
Yeah. Well, okay. I don't know if I'd call it singing, but I did joust around a little bit, maybe.
Well, Kip, all the years that I've done the Windjammer Festival,
yes,
and trying to get you to do the talent show.
Oh, right.
How many times have you gotten up there and sung?
Never.
Exactly.
The only time I ever did anything is the last one I went to. I came in as an owner and left as an ex-owner, and Sam and I had closed that day, and so I just said goodbye to everybody.
I remember.
Sam said hello. Yeah.
Sam came the next year and he played.
Of course, he's talented. He can not only can he sail, he can sing and play guitar. Oh man, it's great.
I'm a better sailor than I am a singer.
On the railway there, Sam, for the first time, huh?
Yeah, well, that was my first time having the vessel on the railway. That's also the first time anything was hauled on that new railway at the south end there. We were the first vessel to get hauled.
Right.
And it's pretty interesting if you look at the stern of the ship there, that the railway has a pretty strong declivity. So they had to block the stern of the ship up about 7 feet off the deck of the railway.
Right.
Which made it pretty difficult for working on it. But you could really get, when you stood up under the stern of the ship looking down along the run, you get this amazing perspective of how big she is and how much, you know, that planking. There's some of that original planking coming off the run there that's 18 inches wide at the butt and goes, you know, almost 60 feet, with, you know, 60-foot runs of planking back there coming full 90-degree twist from the stern post down into the bottom of the ship. It's really impressive.
Gee. Yeah. They sure did build her well. And she's now, what, 75% still original?
Yeah, that's what Kip was. You thought it was maybe about 70% original structure.
Yeah. Most of the ceiling is all still original. You know, some of her framing, believe it or not, underneath the waterline. Most of the stuff above the waterline has been replaced. A lot of her deck is original. Some of that framing is still. When I replaced the transom a bunch of years ago, I can't remember. Rob Stevens and I and Tom Bourneville, he was part of that. And we got into it, and her transom knees were all split from so many fastenings, but you open it up, you could still smell the pitch. I mean, it was still had that heart pine pitch to it, you know, a century later. Great wood.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Huh.
Oh yeah, great stuff. That's why she's around. She was built with great wood, and she was built a little bit better than a lot of the Rams. She really was. She had a break in her deck. Most of the inside, they had inside and outside Rams. Some were a little wider. That didn't. They actually had a couple of them topmast. They carry a 4 topmast. That was pretty much it. But there were some of the outside Rams. Had the break, and she was the first one, I think. Sam, you may know, but I think she was the first one built with that break.
Yeah, she's
an odd break because the deck goes all the way underneath it, and then the
first one built with that break. But she was also the only inside model Ram built with the break. None of the other ones had that break. And the other interesting thing about the vessel is she was the only inside model Ram that had the stern, the planking. Actually, she was planked down around the tuck. All the other inside model Rams had what they called a shovel stern, where essentially the deadwood was just a skeg coming out the back of the ship. And that's why a lot of, like the 11J Marble, was so much more hogged. A lot of them really suffered from not having as much structure in the backbone at the stern there, with the planking coming down and the frames coming down. but she was the first one to have that. So she was a transition between the inside model and the outside model Ram. So she had a lot of the features of the outside model Rams from all the ones that were built later, but she was still the 23-foot, 10-inch wide inside model.
Yeah, they built one four-master, Jim. One four-masted Ram.
Really?
Yeah.
Never knew that.
Yeah, and I think she had two centerboard trunks, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she did. They ended up getting rid of the after one pretty early in her career, though.
Well, this centerboard's on center, is it? It's not offset?
It's offset.
It is offset.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so
What
is the
side?
main. The main mast is also offset as well.
Oh, so they compromised it. Yeah, great.
Yeah, she'll tack one side better than the other.
Yeah, that's more pictures of 2019. Well, the one in the middle there is not 2019. You can tell if it's. I painted her black first season, so like any good ship owner, I got a good deal on black paint, so the color changed. So you can tell that one was when Kip had it, but a couple of other pictures. The lower right-hand corner was Dave came. One of those days where it really comes on to blow out of the southwest, where all the fleet was anchored up in wooden boat. We're all running down for the Bass Harbor bar right there, doing about 9 knots off the wind. And I think we left wooden boat at 10:30 in the morning. I had her anchored in Southwest Harbor by 2:30.
Wow.
Quite a passage. But
He's a racehorse, you know that.
Yeah.
Always
Everybody
was,
else
yeah.
got there faster.
Built for speed.
Very nice. Well, got your shadow on the island over there.
Yeah, it's going through Ledbetter's Narrows.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, when the first time I tried to do it, I really was wondering if that was something I should be trying to do, but it seemed to work out in every subsequent time.
Yeah.
A little tight in there for that vessel.
Well, plenty of water.
There's your racehorse picture. That's the race in 2019 right there. Fine sailing breeze of 5 knots of wind.
Yeah.
She's always been a light air vessel. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can still get her to tack. Somehow she'll actually tack in that breeze.
You got to time it with a calendar.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Somebody polished that bell until the poor old thing's about worn out, isn't it?
Yeah, the letters are getting worn off of it.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We finally took the binnacle off, so the crew doesn't have to spend hours polishing the binnacle anymore.
Good. Well, beautiful coast of Maine sunset. That's about it.
Not too bad.
That's about it. And any questions? Any questions we have? Anybody want to kibitz? Anybody want to have a little story to tell? Speak up. This is the last chance.
Hey, this is Jack Adam. I actually crewed for Captain Giles in 1976, and I want to tell a quick Fritz story. That summer, Captain Giles' grandson, Stephen, and I worked together. And I think we were in Bucksport ferrying passengers in and out, and Fritz was on the pier. And Stephen and I took the time to ask Fritz how he was doing, introduce ourselves. Well, unbeknownst to us, Captain Giles had a set of binoculars on us and saw us talking to Fritz. So we get back to the boat and we get this famous, I don't even see my finger, but all we could see of Captain Giles was his right finger doing this. And Stephen and I were asked if we wanted to go home right now.
Wow.
Because we were talking to Fritz. So a quick story, Captain Giles, he liked loyalty, let's just say that.
Kind.
Yeah.
Got a question? I got a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
What's the plan for this summer?
Well, you'll have to ask Janet Mills that, I guess.
Well, No, we're going sailing this summer. One way or the other, we are going to operate. We feel confident that if people are either tested before they come sailing or they have a vaccine, that we can operate safely and effectively. And everybody who's booking right now is on board with that idea. So Stephen Tabor and Ladona operated successfully last year with significantly reduced numbers, but they sort of provided a blueprint for us to do it safely. And we feel confident that we'll have a 2021 sailing season.
Good.
We're all with you on that. We're all going to try our best to operate, and we're going to be going full bore. We hope. Well, great. Well, sure appreciate everybody coming up. This is a nice session, and we'll have it on YouTube, so everybody that missed it will be able to see it on YouTube.
Jim, are you still there? Jimmy Payne?
Yes.
Yeah, I talked to Skip the other day, and he's getting some back surgery done and stuff, but he gives his, sends his best.
Well, back to him. Yeah, I gotta get in touch with him. Yeah.
He's down in Chattanooga.
Yeah. Not much salt water there.
No, he comes up and does some stuff in Newport, sees Joe Davis and
that's good.
One of our old crew members has a schooner called the Tree of Life, and he'll sail around on her a little bit.
Where's Joe Davis?
Joe's in Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's hanging in. He's I saw him a couple times this summer.
Did you? I haven't seen him.
Yeah, he's about the same, but a little grayer like the rest of us.
Right. Some of us are without.
Yeah, well, I should take that kind of glare on the side. Right.
Well, we hope the next one is going to be the French and the American Eagle. And those guys, I hope they're getting things together. So we hope to do that one in a couple of weeks. And then the Heritage and the Riggin, and then we'll probably take off for the summer. We'll be busy doing other things.
That's a great program.
We'll be back home the 1st of April.
Just in time for black flies.
Yep. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
If you want the rest
of the
story,
Sam.
Thank you, Jim. Good to see you, Cap.
Thank you very much. If you want the rest of the story, get my copy of my book, my memoirs. Get it right from the museum. 40 years of voyaging. My memoirs. Some of it's even true. You can't tell.
Well, I ruin a good story with fact, Jim. Come on.
Oh, God, yeah, you can't do that. So there we are. Appreciate it.
Great job.
Thanks, Jim.
Best to you.